Session resumed. The Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Michael Tan, Defensor of the Party List Anak Kalusugan, to avail of the question of privilege.
Let me just quote Section 105 before I begin, Mr. Speaker. Questions of privilege. Questions of privilege are urgent matters, directly and principally affecting the duties, conduct, rights, privileges, dignity, integrity, or reputation of the House or of its members, individually or collectively. Nabanggit ko po, Mr. Speaker, na ako'y nagpaalam sa ating kagalang-galang na Majority Floor Leader na ako po'y tumatayo on a question of personal and collective privilege. Sa kadahilanan na ang Pangulo po ay nagsalita kagabi tungkol sa investigasyon na isinasagawa sa Development Bank of the Philippines na kung saan binanggit niya na nagkaroon ng suspension at if I may quote him directly, sabi niya, hindi maganda para sa atin yan. Mr. Speaker, the President also stated that there are many investigations of banks, but in this particular case, when we were about to investigate the Lopez loan, we suspended the investigation. At idinugtong niya, Mr. Speaker, na ito daw po ay ibibigay niya na sa Ombudsman. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me begin by saying that I already spoke with the Honorable Aglipay, who was here with us in plenary, the Chairman of the Committee on Good Government. At nagpapasalamat po ako, Mr. Speaker, dahil ngayon po nagkaroon kami ng paglilinaw kung ano ang tatahakin at direksyon ng Committee ng Good Government at ng ating Kongreso. Importante, Mr. Speaker, yung sinabi ng ating Presidente at kung ano ang aksyon na gagawin ng ating Kongreso ukol sa investigasyon na ito. Dahil ang ating reputasyon, ang ating integridad, ang ating pong panunungkulan, our duties and responsibilities here in Congress, in particular, the Committee on Good Government, has to pursue the investigations until its final conclusion. Malinaw po yan. Pagka po nagkaroon ng paghinto, ito ay didesisyonan ng committee. It is the committee's decision. I'd like to thank the Honorable Aglipay again, Mr. Speaker, during the break. Nilapitan niya po ako at nagkaroon na po kami ng paglilinaw. Because, Mr. Speaker, what happened was, in January 18, nagkaroon kami ng investigasyon. Doon po sa aming pag-uusap, sinabi ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas na yung mga loan na to ay walang eligibility. Yung po ang nauna. Ang pangalawa po, ang sinabi po nila ay walang mga dokumento at nawawala na daw. Ang hindi alam ng Development Bank of the Philippines, meron po tayong hawak na mga dokumento. Dahil ang issue po na ito ay lumabas na isang dekadang nakaraan. No less than the columnist Neil Cruz of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, God bless his soul, wrote about this issue of condoned loans of the ABS-CBN Lopez Group. And Mr. Speaker, it was in fact the very statement of President Duterte that there are condoned loans. And during that hearing, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas was affirming that there were loans not given eligibility. Ngayon, Mr. Speaker, kung ito namang depensa nila sinasabi nila, na ito daw po ay pwede sila magbenta kahit hindi dumaan sa SPAV, dahil ito naman po daw ay tax incentive, lalo pong mas masama, dahil yung 9 bilyon na utang, ginawa po nilang 3 bilyon. Mr. Speaker, I see the face of the beautiful face of the Honorable Herrera. She requested me not to dwell on the issue, but I'm just stating a fact na meron pong patutunguhan ang isyong to. May mga dokumento at may mga ebidensya. At ang Pangulo na nga mismo, nagsabi 3 taong nakaraan, binanggit niya na to. Kagabi, nagalit na siya sa Kongreso. Bakit natin hinto at ibibigay sa Ombudsman? Ang tanong ko, Mr. Speaker, ano ang ating gagawin? Ang tanong ko sa liderato ng ating Kongreso, hindi ko na babanggitin ang pangalan dahil sabi ni Congressman Herrera, wag mo na sabihin ang pangalan Speaker Lord Velasco. Ano ang aksyon na ating gagawin tungkol sa investigasyon na ito? Mr. Speaker, again, I thank the Honorable Aglipay. I understand there will be a hearing on the 17th. Sana po ay matapos natin to. Because, Mr. Speaker, in the end, ang talumpati ng ating Pangulo was on the vaccination. And he mentioned that the payment for vaccination will come from loans. Ito po ay panggagaling sa utang. At ang utang na yan, manggagaling sa DBP at sa World Bank. Ang pera po ng DBP ay pera ng taong bayan. Yan po ay pera ng gobyerno. At responsibilidad ng Kongresong to na hindi payagan maulit muli ang pagkawala ng pondong yan. Dahil yan po ay hindi natin pera, hindi perang pribado, kundi pera ng sambayanang Pilipino. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon to everyone.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Michael Aglipay.
Gentleman, Representative Mike Aglipay is hereby recognized. Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Honorable Mike Defensor, maraming salamat sa iyong talumpati. Nung kami po ay nag-hearing ng January 18,
Village hour mo, sir?
ay napagkasunduan po sa mga resource persons na binigyan sila ng taning na isang buwan na i-produce po yung mga dokumento na kulang. Yung Lopez Group po, DBP at saka BSP. Yung taning po na yon ay sa Feb 18 pa, kaya ang hearing po natin ay sinuspend ko nung Feb 2. Nung Feb 3 po, natawagan po tayo ni Speaker and in-instructionan niya tayo, miski hindi pa Feb 18, is mag-hearing na. Yung utos po na yon nung Feb 3, ay sabi ko, Speaker, kailangan po kahit konting oras mabigyan natin kasi 15 years ago pa po itong mga papeles na to. So napagkusundan pa namin nung Feb 3, and in-instructionan ko po yung COMSEC na i-prepare ang hearing sa Feb 17. So yun po ang napagkasundoan ng lahat at ito po ay pending sa Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability. Rest assured po ay hanapin natin yung punot dulo nitong issue na to. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to react because my name was being mentioned. I was looking at the Honorable Defensor because this topic is already a topic in the committee already for deliberation. And hindi po tama that he's using the time here in plenary to discuss things that are up for investigation in the Committee on Good Government. Kaya ko po siya tinitignan para pigilan po siya dahil hindi po tama na dinidiscuss po natin ang bagay na to, ang subject matter na to, and he gave us his assurance earlier that he will not violate the rules of this floor, of the plenary, para po magkaroon ng due advantage doon sa kanyang posisyon. Kaya, Mr. Speaker, I just like to put that in record. That is the reason why I was looking at him, to prevent him from saying anything further regarding the subject matter that is already a topic in the Committee on Good Government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We would like to be enlightened as to what is the purpose of these deliberations going on now on the floor, to take over the time that we would want to allot to tackle very important measures pending before this body. Ano po ba ang punot dulo nito? At ano po ba ang karapatan ni Congressman Defensor na tumayo upang questionin ang nangyayari sa committee? Nagbago na po ba tayo na rules? He is mentioning a collective privilege. I do not feel belonging to that issue. That issue is not my concern, and I'd like to be dissociated from his position. And I am questioning his citing collective privilege. And this issue is a very personal one for him. Mabuti pa sinabi niya personal privilege, and I will respect that. Pero collective, I do not feel belonging to what is cited here. He is citing again his personal crusade against the ABS and the Lopez companies. Ako po'y nakadalo sa isang pulong na ginaganap base po sa kanilang reklamo, chaired by Congressman Mike Aglipay, and I listened to the deliberations and the opportunities given him to support their allegations. And I personally witnessed failure on their part to support their allegations with documents. And I support whatever action the chairman would take to handle these particular issues, because when one goes to any committee for an investigation, he should be ready with documents and not go on a fishing expedition requiring the banks, including the central bank, to to bring the documents that they are required to present before the body, before the council, the committee. At this point, bringing the issue on the floor occupies all of our time, and I question that particular action because it is not in accordance with our rules.
I was rising in the middle of the speech of the Honorable Defensor about something. However, my microphone was not working at that time, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure my Brad will agree with me, Mr. Speaker. Of course, it is his right to speak on something of personal and collective privilege. However, I presume that he was carried away in tackling matters that were already subject matter to a committee deliberation, as pointed out by the Honorable Aglimpay. I'm sure it was unintended by the Honorable Defensor to get carried away that far and cause these reactions. Therefore, in accordance with our rules, Mr. Speaker, may I move that we strike out all the matters mentioned by the Honorable Defensor from the records that are related to the subject matter discussed already in the committee, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Mr. Speaker?
Is there any objection?
No, Mr. Speaker, object. Before the ruling of the chair, may I just quickly reply?
The distinguished gentleman from Anak Kalusugan is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, isa-isahin ko, ang unang binanggit po ni Honorable Atienza, yung daw salita ko is not a collective privilege. It is precisely a collective privilege, Mr. Speaker, dahil ang Pangulo nagsabi, Kongreso.
That is not my point, Mr. Speaker, and I have a motion, Mr. Speaker.
No, before the motion, just quick. Now, on a personal level, Mr. Speaker, I did say it is a personal and collective privilege. Ngayon, Mr. Speaker, sinasabi ni Honorable Belmonte, I already touched on the issue. Mr. Speaker, I never discussed pro or against the issue. Ang sinasabi ko lang yung factual na merong mga lumabas doon sa ginawa naming hearing. Therefore, yun ang kinagalit ng Pangulo. Now, if you feel that the President had no right to say that mali ang pag-suspend natin, okay, delete what I said. That there was condonation, that there was suspension, because that is the statement of the President. And if the majority will allow that those phrases will be taken off, then I would say that this very Congress is fighting the objective and intent of the President. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, there is a pending motion.
I object, Mr. Speaker. I object. So we vote on it.
There is a motion. Will the distinguished gentleman from Quezon City please repeat his motion?
Mr. Speaker, this representation believes we should not vote on a question of rules. This is a rule written in our book of rules governing this particular Congress. And the gentleman from Anak Kalusugan is citing a subject which is already being taken up in a committee. So what's the basis for taking it up? So therefore I support the suggestion of Congressman Belmonte
Mr. Speaker,
to dispense with this discussion. Otherwise, we will concentrate the whole afternoon today on this issue.
I move to suspend session.
Session suspended.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to make it clear to the gentleman from Anakulusugan that we are striking out not the entire speech, but those subject matters that are only subject of the deliberation in the committee. I would like to assure the good gentleman that we are moving, what we move for the striking out of the statements are those statements that pertains only to the subject matter that is being deliberated now by the committee.
Mr. Speaker, with the assurance of the majority floor leader, I withdraw my objection. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.